Today on 100 Huntley Street, we're asking the question, what makes you happy? I mean, truly happy. We're also going to talk about how God can turn a tragedy into a testimony and how you are helping us make a difference around the world. And it all starts right now.
Thanks so much for joining us here on 100 Huntley Street on this Monday. And today you're going to love this because we are going to unpack happiness. Like it's in a suitcase. We're going to unpack it.
Well, that's relevant to us because we travel a lot, so we're good at unpacking.
It's true. Unpacking.
Well, unpack for me and for our audience, what makes Cheryl Weber happy?
Ooh, so many things.
And don't say being with me because everybody knows that.
But okay, the
real thing.
Okay, being with Joe, obviously. Jesus, obviously. Coffee actually brings me a lot of happiness.
One.
I always say coffee's love, so I mean that's kind of shallow. And then the most consistent thing, honestly, that brings me happiness is making a difference and around the world. Like every time I get to email one of our partners and say, hey, we just got the funds to be able to feed the kids, or we just got the funds to be able to like build a bathroom for the girls or whatever. Like for me, that's like the most joyful thing that I can do. Like being able to give that message and say like, the project can go ahead. The help is here. Like, you know, it's pure joy, Joe. I don't know what else to say. Like,
you don't have
there's
to
nothing
say
like it.
else.
Telling people you can't help is the saddest thing, and telling people you can't help is the happiest thing.
I can 100% relate to you because, you know, we've said this before on the show, we both have a heart for Africa and, you know, God has called us to work in Liberia. And yeah, being able to say, hey, we just went to the bank and we wired enough money, you know, whether it was for the kids to move into the orphanage on Christmas, Eve, or whether it's, this next batch of kids can go to school and start their education. I mean, that just brings you so much joy and it makes me really happy. But on just kind of like an everyday, down to earth kind of thing, I don't know if I've mentioned it here before, but I'm a big science fiction fan. Like, I love natural space. I love astronomy, looking up at Jupiter. I drive my family nuts. Look, there's Venus. They're like, Dad, it's there every night. But I'm that guy. But I also like fake space, like science fiction.
I do know this.
You do know this? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys do, and I hope you'll still like me after this. I am a big Star Trek fan. And one of the things that brings me joy is this. I don't think you've seen this, Cheryl.
What?
This is my office at home. So at the center of it, of course, is the two girls from one of the villages that we help at. And the girl on the left, we just sent back to school this year. She's excited. But all those little ships on those shelves are replicas from the Star Trek show. And it's a simple thing, but it makes me happy.
I know this about you, and I also know never to say you like Star Wars. It's Star Trek. I understand it. It's amazing. We support you. And everyone's got to have a hobby.
Unity. Don't bring division. Let's talk about Star Wars.
Well, now onto the topic we were actually going to talk about.
What are some things that people can do?
Okay, this came from the Globe and Mail. Okay. They asked Canadians for who are Canada's happiest people, and they nominated over 100 individuals. Things like an almost priest turned principal in Niagara-on-the-Lake, a nature lover with a pet mule in rural Manitoba.
Sure, why not?
A marathon runner in Winnipeg. And I like this one. An 80-year-old professional mime in Hagersville, Ontario.
Okay.
Professional mime. That would make me happy.
That's an entirely different segment that we can do one day. And what were some of the things that they said you could do to be happy? Number one is they said, say hello to strangers. That's very interesting. Do you do that?
I do that because my extrovert friend told me, as an introvert, that it makes a big difference when you notice people and you say, how is their day going? And you engage them. And so I make an effort to push out of my introversion and talk to strangers all the time now. Okay,
another one. Don't be afraid to knock on a new door.
Oh, you've done that. You've changed your career a million times since I met you.
Exactly. I think we're both okay with that. Number three, when life is painful, maintain this perspective. Today is not tomorrow. You've been saying that as long as I've known you. What's your phrase?
Today is not your forever.
Perfect. And number four, be shamelessly silly.
Dance, sing, blow bubbles. Don't leave that out. Come on, dance, sing, blow bubbles.
I was really trying to get away from the bubbles thing, so thank you for bringing us back on track. No, but it says just to be silly, be yourself, be comfortable. I think that's a really great way to let the joy out.
Absolutely. And of course, we know that happiness, too, comes from just peace from knowing Jesus. I mean, honestly, this world's so full of anxiety.
Yeah.
Just having that peace and that comfort and that presence in your life, incredible.
Yeah, well, Psalm 16:11 tells us that, you make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. So have fun, do those things, collect your Star Trek stuff, do all that. But true happiness comes from knowing Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our mission here at 100 Huntley Street. That's why we do what we do. And we also love to bring you stories. Here's one about someone who really understands that peace and joy actually can only be found in Christ.
I was born in a very challenging way. I was born basically almost without vital signs. When my mom would pray, the nurses would see her praying, and they knew the seriousness of the situation. So they would maybe try to help her by saying, don't pray, we don't think he's gonna make it. What that did is just filled my mom with faith, and she went on her knees and just prayed and said, Lord, if you bring back life to my son, he will serve you for the rest of his days. And here we are. My name is Luis Vargas, and this is my story. Music has always been a part of me. I feel like it was always an expression, another language. I started studying piano and classical music. And then all of a sudden you hear funk music, gospel music, jazz, and my ear just got super captivated as well. I grew up in a very Christian environment where you just believe you're Christian because of your surroundings, because of the people that you grew up with, and because you go to church. You go to church and you're Christian, and I always kind of desired a more powerful story, but my heart wasn't fully surrendered until 2007. A beautiful friend, pastor, and an incredible influence in my life. He said, Luis, it's beautiful to see you, but can I speak to you like a father, like honestly with love? Can I open my heart with you? And I said, of course. He basically just said, I would love to disciple you. I believe I became saved. The Lord saved my life in 2008. That's simply because it was a full surrender. It was a full surrender of my life, of things that I was hanging on to, and finally became real. At the end of November 2019, I started feeling a little bit sick. It got really, really bad, and I was home. But then by December 2nd, I was feeling way better. And then the next day, we were actually here at Crossroads recording a Christmas special with Paul Walsh. It's called Behold.
Is a shelter like no other, your name. Let the nation sing it louder.
That day I came and I was very sick. I was coughing a lot and just not well at all. And that day was very hard to get through. The next day, I went to my doctor and they diagnosed a full double pneumonia. And they gave me antibiotics. And my doctor said, I want to see you in 7 days. Each day on antibiotic, before seeing my doctor again, became a calvary. It was just awful. Worse and worse and worse. I started hallucinating, lost all sense of taste. I didn't know at the time, but I guess it was all the lack of oxygen. The next day, I was on an induced coma, intubated for several days. There was a time that it was very serious, very serious. I was 100% depending on those machines and the Lord. I thought it was going to be the end, or could have been the end. My wife didn't even bring her girls because she didn't want them to ever remember that if in case of anything bad happening. After several days of unknowns, and I was induced in a coma, so I had no idea what was going on. And then I remember kind of like waking up, coming back to life, and they said, okay, we're going to remove the tube, and they did. And from that day, it was just improvement, like coming back to life. And then my wife starts telling me the reality of what really happened. and how serious it was. And you're just trying to process everything and just to think about your kids. And then a huge perspective comes in your life, right, on what's really important. How can we settle for a passive Christian life knowing that there is so much more to it and so much to gain? The Lord brought me back to life. Thankful to the Lord that we're here, and He had a bigger plan than that. Yeah.
You know, Luis's story is so touching and so powerful. And, you know, he's a guy who understands what it means to go through a difficult season in life. And he's no stranger to 100 Huntley Street. He mentioned in the piece that he's been on with Paul Baloche before. He's been part of our Royal Anthems worship initiative. But, you know, going through that process really changed his perspective on life. And, you know, maybe you're going through a season of difficulty right now and you need someone to talk to or someone to pray with you. Please call the prayer lines. Someone will walk with you and pray with you. 1-866-273-4444. And you know what? God can use all seasons in our lives. I don't believe that He causes those things, but He can use those things to change our perspective and to draw us closer to Him. And that's what happened to Luis.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't know how many days we have left on this earth, but every day is a gift. If you woke up today, you are here for a reason. Whether you know that reason, whether you feel like you matter, it doesn't matter. If God gave you the gift of life, you are here for a reason. And so I hope that encourages you today, that you really hear that. And we're going to hear a little bit more about how we should look at pain in our lives from Pastor Daniel M. from Beulah Alliance Church.
Have you ever heard this quote from C.S. Lewis? Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Pain insists upon being attended to. So, are you facing any pain right now that needs to be attended to? Perhaps it's pain because of the state of your finances, pain because you've bought something that you later regretted, or pain because you've signed up for a payment plan that you thought you'd be able to handle, but now you can't. Or perhaps you're facing health-related pain, pain from a chronic health issue, from a mental health illness, from a disability, or from a terminal diagnosis. Or perhaps it's pain from loss, where you're filled with so much grief because of a loss of a loved one, or maybe it's not that kind of loss, it's the kind of loss of status because you've lost your job, or you've recently retired and are having a hard time with that and all it entails. Or maybe someone has taken something from you and they won't give it back. Or perhaps the pain you're facing right now is pain from relationships. Maybe you've recently moved and you're feeling a sense of loss because you see what all your friends back home are doing and yet you're here and not there with them. Or perhaps there's tension in your family, or you feel pain because your marriage is stressed and sexless, or the pain is because you're single and you want to get married but you can't seem to find the right person. Or the pain is from the fact that you were married and now you're not. What sort of pain are you facing right now? And what do you think would happen if you stopped trying to medicate it away, push it away, escape from it, suppress it, or ignore it, and instead attended to it, as C.S. Lewis so aptly put it, by recognizing that perhaps God is trying to say something to you through this pain? Could God right now perhaps be trying to get your attention?
You know, no one likes pain. No one likes going through difficult seasons. And sometimes I think there's this idea that, you know, once you become a Christian and you accept Christ, everything's going to be perfect and you're not going to have any problems. That's actually not what the Bible teaches. In fact, Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble, but I have overcome them. And that's the beauty and that's the power of being a believer, is knowing that we don't have to walk alone. And if we allow it, though, pain can be a powerful teacher. It's not an easy process, but it can teach us. You know, we know that pain can teach us to fully trust God, even in the most difficult. I'm sure you've had things you've gone through in your life that you'd be like, Lord, this has to be you. You got to be the one to step in, right?
Absolutely. I often said to people, if you see anything good about me, you know, that came through the hard things in life. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't true. I'm always like, God, is there a way I can learn that without, you know, going through that? But I love, Joe, you gave us this verse, 2 Corinthians 1:3-4. And this is about, you know, pain. It's not just about trusting God, but it's also about comforting others. Like what you've learned through that, you can actually use it to help other people who are going through those hard times. So 2 Corinthians 1:3-4, it says, He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. And that's absolutely amazing. Like I always think and I hear this from a lot of guests too, like if my pain could mean anything, you know, let me use that to make a difference in other people's lives. Let me use that to encourage people who are addiction. Let me use that to encourage people who are sick. And when that happens, it actually takes away the pain a little bit of that memory, of that trauma, of that suffering. Don't you find? When you can encourage someone else.
100%, you know, and I don't always want to go through those things, but sometimes I say, well, I'm glad I went through that because now I know how to identify with people in their you know, difficult seasons. And the truth is that, you know, earthly trials and tribulations, they're only temporary, and the reward of heaven outweighs them all. And so right now we're going to listen to Sheila Walsh on more.
In your book, you share as well about the loss of your dad when you were younger. And you write this beautiful quote, page 36, "The moment my dad took his last breath on earth, he took his first in the presence of Jesus. He was finally safe. He was home." And that's really moving to me because I know that your father struggled with health issues. They led to mental health issues, and fortunately, he didn't get the support in his life in different ways. And he did end up taking his life and going home to be with the Lord. And yet we have that assurance. There are a lot of people watching who have lost loved ones to suicide. And they wonder where their loved ones are. They wonder what the future has in store. How does that bring you peace in the midst of your own losses?
So much peace, because my dad did die by suicide. But before his brain injury, he loved Jesus. And the thing I love is we will never be judged by the last thing we did. We're only judged by the last thing Jesus did.
It's one of the best things you've written in here.
The last thing Jesus did, well, he said, "It is finished, bill paid in full." My dad went immediately into the presence of the Lord, and all his suffering was over. And for those who've lost children, for those who've maybe gone through abortions and think, "I wish I hadn't made that choice," that little one is safe. You will see that little one again. They are safely home with Jesus. I got pregnant one more time after our son, and I wasn't able to carry that little one for too long. But I can't wait to meet them in heaven.
Yes. And when we think about heaven, you know, people wonder, what will our bodies be like? What age will we be? What
will I be fat?
Like? Will I still eat too many chips? No. What does the Bible depict as what our bodies could be like? What are you seeing when you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation?
There's some things we can know for absolutely sure, and then there's things that we can kind of assume almost from the character of God. I think that in heaven, I tried to go as far back as I could in terms of the early church fathers and all the way through church history and what some of the more conservative theologians believe, that we'll probably all be about prime age, that maybe we'll all be about the age that Jesus was during his ministry. So little ones who died before they had a chance to live will reach prime. Older people who got to be, maybe one of my friends just died, he was 92. We'll come back to being in prime, and our bodies will be perfect. It will be the way it was supposed to be with Adam and Eve. There'll be no more looking in the mirror thinking, does this outfit make me look fat? Because the attention won't be on us. The attention will be on how beautiful Jesus is.
This month, Crossroads is excited to offer you the book, The Hope of Heaven by Sheila Walsh.
Hi friends, Sheila Walsh here. I'm thrilled to share something close to my heart, and that's my brand new book, The Hope of Heaven, How the Promise of Eternity Changes Everything. You know, after years of writing, this one has impacted me like no other. The Hope of Heaven dives deep into questions we all have. What will heaven be like? Will I recognize my loved ones? Even, will my pets be there? I know how much we all long for answers. I pray that when you read the book, you'll embrace the hope of our eternal, forever home, and it'll transform how you live every day.
This book is our thanks for your ministry support. With a gift of $40 or more, or when you become a new monthly partner, request your copy of The Hope of Heaven. Call 1-800-265-3100 or visit crossroads.ca/heaven.
And we can't thank you enough for your support of this ministry.
Yeah.
You know, when you give, it really does make a difference in so many people's lives. I mean, obviously, you see this show, 100 Huntley Street. You know the impact it's had on your life. You know what's happening on the show and how we're praying for revival in this nation. And boy, do we ever need it. But also those prayer lines, even if you've never called it, like the ability to have a prayer line in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, you know, when you feel all alone, to have somebody to say, yeah, you're not alone. And to pray through you through the hard things that we have to face in this life, it really matters. And that's you picking up that phone. That's you, you know, producing this show. That's you through all of our programs, and even, you know, the missions work we do around the world. Like, these are the kinds of things you can do without even leaving your home. You may not want to go to the mission field. I've had people all the time, Joe, tell me, like, I don't know how you do it. I'd never want to go there. That's fine. I love going there. You love going to mission field. We love making a difference around the world, but we can't do it without you. So please give us a call. Help us start 2025 strong. That number is 1-800-265-3100. You can also give online at crossroads.ca/heaven, and of course request your book from Sheila Walsh.
Yeah, I love that, Cheryl, because you're not just buying a book. You're doing so much more than that. You're giving people hope. You're giving people an opportunity to dream. You're giving people a second chance, whether it's going to school, to be in a shelter and be protected. There's so much that happens when you support what we do here at Crossroads and 100 Huntley Street. And a book on heaven, you can't go wrong with that. It's really great to learn more about heaven. But, you know, before we get to heaven, a lot of people have to go through hell. They have to go through a really difficult time here on earth. And here's an incredible story of how Crossroads Cares is making a difference because of you around the world.
At 12 years old, Mary is still a child, and yet several weeks ago, she became a mother. Something is wrong with this picture.
It is horrifying, actually, because it means that as a society there's something that we're doing wrong, and it's quite unfortunate that Mary's case is not the only one.
Social worker Margaret Mena works with the Mully Child Protection and Development Centers. She says girls are at the mercy of their family circumstances and are often sold into marriage and prostitution. Mary's parents are poor. They work day and night for little, leaving her and her younger siblings vulnerable and alone.
Mary was raped. She was defiled by a young man who was working at a neighbor's compound. So he would come through the window and threaten that if she was to say anything, he would kill her or harm her. So she just didn't say anything until when now she got pregnant, and it was after that now a neighbor was able to point out to the mother, lately I have been looking at your child and the way she's walking, something is wrong. Have you talked to her?
After going to the police, the man was found and arrested. Even from jail, his threats persisted. It wouldn't be the only threat to Mary's life. That's because at 12, her body isn't fully developed, and natural childbirth can turn deadly. Mary needed a C-section, something she could not afford. Authorities turned to MCF for help.
So Mary was actually admitted for 2 whole weeks for her conception, for her birth. So from 28th, and then they conducted the cesarean section on 4th. And then she was monitored for 2 to 3 days, then she was released on the 3rd day. Then that is when she came back to Mully Children's Family, where she's still being closely monitored, that the baby is healthy, that the baby is breastfeeding well. To this point, she's still not able to wash the baby, so someone has to be there to guide her slowly and slowly. So it's a process that is going to take quite a lot. And we are fortunate that at Mully Children's Family, we have caregivers who have been hired for that specific reason.
It's a huge responsibility for a 12-year-old to bear, and she still has a lot to learn about caring for her daughter, Gloria. But she's got time, and she is much safer here than had she gone home.
She would probably end up being married to a man who's way older. So it was God's plan that she ended up in Mully Chetan's family, because the opportunities for her here are endless, and she can still make something of her life.
Despite the trauma Mary is still unraveling, there are threads of hope, even dreams.
What I have come to know about her is that she just loves being around people. She doesn't have to talk. She will just come and sit close to you and just observe you, and she will be okay with it. She's very limited in her speech, but she just loves that contact, just someone being there.
When we talked to Mary, she did not say much, but when asked about her future, her countenance changes.
I want to be the best hairdresser.
These smiles are the small victories for social workers like Margaret, and it's why Crossroads Cares continues to support the Mully Children's Family ongoing labor of love in Kenya. The opportunity to learn a trade, get an education is vital for girls like Mary, and her daughter Gloria too. It's another example of the power of God's love to reach and restore those who live in the margins and raise them up to become His sons and daughters, made in His image.
You know, at the top of the show, I said we're going to talk about how God can turn a tragedy into a triumph, and that's not something you would wish on anybody. But in those last few moments of that story, you saw these women just smiling, and the resilience that these African women have is unbelievable. And I'm having this reaction sitting here in a studio in Burlington. What was it like for you to be in a room with Mary, hearing that story from her and from those who are around her?
Yeah, you know, over the years, I feel like I've seen it all, I've heard it all, but it doesn't matter how much I've seen or how much I've heard or how strong I've gotten. Seeing a little girl that was raped at 11 and gave birth at 12, I mean, she couldn't even really talk. Like she was still, it was 2 weeks, I think, when I met her since she had this major C-section surgery, trying to care for a baby that was dependent on her. And I just feel like, you have two choices at that moment. It's interesting because I remember over the years even talking to some of my coworkers and being so upset. And then they're like, look, you can either just spend time wallowing in grief about how this world is so unjust and why does this happen? Or you can decide, no, I am the answer to this girl's problem. I'm going to make a difference. We're going to do something about it. And that for me was a really good learning experience on how to deal with things like this. Because of course, like for a day or two afterwards, I really was grieving,
100%.
Kind of traumatized myself by her story. But at the same time, knowing that, okay, yeah, this is why we do what we do. And when we bring these stories, people do respond and it does make a difference. And that counseling, the social worker, the people who are helping her, with the physical, caring for a baby, what does that mean? Like making sure she doesn't roll over on the baby at night, like just helping her in every way, that matters. Like a lot of people, you mentioned this, women are resilient in Africa. A lot of times they don't have that kind of support.
100%. And sometimes we don't understand the difference that we can make. All the way here in Canada, you might call today and say, I'm going to give $100. Well, you have to understand what that $100 can do. It's going to provide a safe place for a place like Mary, for a little girl who's trying to make her way through this situation that was forced on her. And we get to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And I love so much being a part of Crossroads Cares. We said, what makes me happy? This makes me happy, that we can step into someone's world and make a tangible difference. And we want to encourage you, please, to partner with us today and give the best gift you can, because it's not for us, it's not for this ministry, it's to help girls like Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. That number is 1-800-265-3100. You can also give at crossroads.ca/cares. And we can't thank you enough for all you're doing to make a difference around the world and for just being our biggest cheerleader, our prayer partner. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, amen. Amen.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a supporter-funded nonprofit organization and member of the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities. Thanks to faithful people like you, we are able to continue producing 100 Huntley Street. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R4M2, or visit crossroads.ca to learn more about our programs.